Gill, CEO of Hero Electric, is with us on the show. I'm also speaking with Hormazd Sorabjee, editor of Autocar India. Great to speak with both of you. You know, we've had this conversation with both of you quite a few weeks ago when the first couple of incidents came to light, and we had discussed then what could be done next. Mr. Gill, in your view, have there been enough checks and balances been put in place to avoid further incidents? Because every few days, I think in the last couple of weeks, we've heard of quite a few incidents, one after the other.
See, the safety has to be built into the chemistry and the design. And these are not things that can be done overnight. What is already in the pipeline, what is already in the market is susceptible to any such things that are happening, can happen to anybody else also. So from that point of view, the actions have to be at two places. In times to come, which will take 5 to 6 months, obviously we should have much better designs, much safer chemistries. And till that time, it is comforting to note that government says that growth will continue, but OEMs should make sure that whatever they have, they pass through very stricter most checks to see that nothing goes to the customer. And that is possible, at least by filtering to a certain extent, not to entire extent. And also not only one-time checking, it's also when the vehicle goes to, or the battery goes to the customer, a periodic check till the time new designs and better chemistries come into play. They will have to continue to trace the battery, how it performs, is there anything happening in the field, and if so, what is the corrective action that can be taken with the customer.
Feasible to check each and every battery before it goes out? Because that is what we're hearing could be one of the norms mandated.
You're asking me?
Yes, Mr. Gill.
Yeah. It is already being done by many OEMs, and I think all the OEMs are doing it. But imagine, what can you check in a battery which is from design or from chemistry? You cannot do anything. The battery, once it is made, it can be checked at the point of receipt or at the point of before dispatch to the customer for its performance or safety at that point of time. But a safe battery at that point of time can become unsafe anytime during the next 5 years. Because of one small defect that happened in manufacturing of a cell, surfaces after many, many months or many years. So this will surely create some sort of a gateway that at least very bad pieces or sub-optimal pieces will get out of it, but doesn't ensure more than that, that throughout the life of the battery, it will remain safe if it is checked at the point of before sending to the customer. It will have to be continuously traced and seen again and again at the service stations. And the customer, when he comes back for servicing of the bike, the dealers must ensure that the batteries are also checked regularly so that throughout the life of such batteries, they are properly tracked for any unsafe signs that come out of the battery.
Hormazd, now, you've been tracking this story carefully as well over the last few weeks. As more and more incidents are coming to light, there are various reports out there quoting sources on what the government's going to do about it. Have you seen any concrete action yet?
No, I haven't seen any concrete action yet, but I think we need to guard against any kind of overzealous regulation, because quite frankly, if that happens, it could really, let's say, hamper the growth of this industry. I also feel, to be honest, there's too much fire being put on this fire. Yes, incidents have occurred, but even IC engines, a lot of them do catch fire for various reasons, issues in the fuel line and stuff like that. That's not to say we shouldn't, let's say, take cognizance of this. But I think, what is happening is there's a lot of panic, a lot of scaremongering happening when all we need to do is create a sort of awareness. I mean, I'm, astonished that even journalists are becoming experts and stating things like all batteries must be liquid cooled and, giving random widespread kind of statements or let's say solutions like that. I think, as Sohinder said, clearly you have to look at the chemistry and the design. This has a huge impact on, these issues. We know about the benefits of LFP versus NMC as far as the chemistry goes, but that's not to say NMCs don't work. They just need better cooling. And I think what I'd like to add also is that quality checks is an issue. And I think quality is something that, really needs to be tightened. And I think that's one area that you might even have the right chemistry, you might even have the right design, but if quality is not taken care of, that could lead to these sort of incidents. And again, I think periodic checks. I think knowing the fact that we are running in a very high ambient temperature environment, I think batteries need to be more mollycoddled. So whether it's terms of the software, making sure that, the propensity to overheat and things like that is kind of taken care with software. Power is reduced of the bike at a certain point. There are more fail-safe measures. That sort of thing needs to be more robust and more inbuilt. But net, I would say that, we are going through a learning curve, let's be honest, unfortunately, at the expense of the customer. But I think, I think we should also guard against creating too much panic about this.
Reporting the facts, but I take your point about people becoming instant journalists on a variety of topics, and how EV batteries should be made is perhaps the latest. But Hormazd, the question over here is what the narrative is building as all of these incidents come to light. The perception out there is that this is happening with new age companies, for lack of a better word, not your traditional OEMs, who have perhaps pressed the accelerator on their assembly line and their timelines, who are in a rush to get their product out and may have not undergone enough checks. Do you think that's a fair assessment of some people?
Absolutely. And I think it's down to really the culture of legacy automakers who understand the importance of validation, the fact that you can't short circuit a testing cycle. You have to go through, for example, the 4 seasons of the year. You just have to do that. You can't really simulate that. You can't make 365 days, 180 days, though I'm sure they would love to. And I think they are in a rush. Clearly, because that's how they operate, to try and create as much value as being out there. So I think, clearly, I think this again goes back to the point that, there are a lot of non-EV bits in making cars and bikes, that's where the legacy manufacturers have a lot of experience, a lot of expertise. And clearly they know that, there are certain things, especially safety related and quality related, you just can't accelerate beyond a point. I also feel that, some of the, let's say, new startups or people coming in were in a rush because there was, this kind of talk of subsidies might end. So they want to sell as many scooters before that happened. Of course, it's been extended. So one can understand the rush as well. But clearly, I think speed in certain cases is not a good thing.
Gill, was this big boom in relatively newer places or newer players, dominating the two-wheeler EV space also because your legacy players sort of seem to have missed the brief and have been taking their time, maybe developing, or were not very convinced about where it would go, and suddenly you had a lot of these players coming in, assembling parts, importing parts, putting it together and having that product ready. Do you think that these developments will have people wait for legacy players come out with a product which they may be able to trust more?
See, legacy players had their own logic of not jumping into the market, not because of these type of incidents, but because they had a solid business going on that side, and they had too many wars to be fought on that side, including BS6 investments, etc. So obviously you can't have everything in a business going parallelly there, because electric and IC, they conflict with each other also in the business sense. But as it goes now, the startup phenomena of electric is not new, because it's a business of aggregation in most of the countries. Motors are not really made like engines inside of a manufacturing unit or a legacy company. You are buying the best motors, you're buying the best batteries, and then you're doing the rest of it. So it encourages startups, encourages the young talent, encourages newcomers. But then that sense of automotive sense, like Sorabjee is saying, is missing there. So it has to be combined. A startup has to combine with a sense of automotive business to make it a success. At this juncture, I believe the legacy companies will not withhold, perhaps, because there are scenes like this that are unsafe. It should give them an impetus that they can do a much better job, and there is an entry point for them. And this is the right time for them to enter and show the confidence that they can do it much better, I believe.
Hormaz, do you think that legacy players will steal a march because of all of the sort of negative news out there around these two-wheeler EV fires?
Well, look, firstly, I think, we are putting too much emphasis on the impact in the market on these EV fires. Yes, people are aware, but people are still buying scooters left, right, and center. I mean, if you look at it in the overall, scheme of things, these are still very much the exceptions, very much stray incidents. It's just that in the media, they flare up because, if you see, they're still, to be honest, single digit or whatever, but not to say that that's a good thing. As I said, we need to be aware. We need to have proper checks and balances. But I think I completely agree with Mr. Gill that, legacy players right now, obviously their bread and butter is the ICE engine. And don't forget, they will be the last to be disruptors because while the going is good, what fuels their profits are ICE engines. And, they need these profits to kind of then fuel their future. So so that's just how it is. I just think in time, when the market starts shifting and tipping, I'm sure they will be ready. They have actually kind of been a bit slow. And I think the pace of electrification, especially in two-wheelers, has taken a lot of them by surprise, obviously led a lot by fuel prices and also a lot of new players coming in. So it's been much faster than expected for everyone. And they've been a bit flat-footed over there, no doubt. But I'm sure they will, they have a strategy. They will come back. But right now, there's no doubt they are on the back foot.
Hormaz, I get your point about a lot of emphasis and perhaps a bit of exaggeration of the kind of risks from two-wheeler EVs. But don't you think that we need transparency and clarity on how many incidents have there been so far? What have been the causes of those incidents? There seems to be no agency compiling this information. And that's part of the problem as well, isn't it?
Well, I think, finally, it's going to be between the manufacturer and his customer. I think the way it works is, I think at the end of the day, the manufacturer is answerable to one person, and that's the person putting the money and, in a way, risking themselves if it is got a propensity to catch fire. I think that's really what will drive the final change, because I'm sure that, these companies right now are really scrabbling to figure out what's going on. I'm sure they are back on the drawing board with their batteries. Things are happening. But it takes time. You can't just change something like a chemistry or a design overnight. I mean, quality is something you can, immediately focus on, have a process in place. And sometimes these are more quality issues than anything else. But I think also we are coming into summer, high ambient temperatures. Clearly, it's shown that you haven't gone through a full life cycle of testing, or at least 2 life cycles of summer testing, which should have been done, because that's really when these incidents would have kind of been caught out. But yes, you can have regulation, you can have checks and balances, but you can do that at what stage? I mean, you can keep periodically checking it, but that still doesn't mean that if there is a defect, you'll be able to catch it and it won't flare up as the bike gets older and even the batteries get older. So I think awareness is important. It's good we are talking about it. It puts pressure on the OEMs to kind of get their act together. It's not being swept under the carpet. So I think in that sense, that's a lot that's being done already.
Mr. Gill, what is the kind of SOP that you, for example, are putting into place and would like to see from the industry?
See, besides the sort of efficacy of the design, which should be first certification, which means a much better, much stronger BMS system than just a simple PCB, and thermal management. To be certified is the first thing, which is not a SOP really, but it is a certification process. And then it is the possibility of creating records of what checks and balances are you doing at the time of receipt of the battery, at the time of sending it to the customer, and later in the life, is something like every OEM should anyway be doing. It's only a question of presenting it to some authorities to create a pressure that you must do it. But I believe anybody serious would be doing it himself already. So it goes back to just checking back your quality systems and seeing whether anything is missing there, or tightening those standards, doing it better on an automated process, doing it more frequently, and then going back to the drawing board and seeing that more needs to be done by learning from the field how the batteries are misbehaving or malfunctioning.
Well, those systems definitely need to be put in place. Thank you so much, Hormazd and Mr. Gill, for joining us on the show this evening. Meanwhile, the draw of two-wheeler electric vehicles is also the promise of new tech and exciting features. I want to leave you with this clip.